So we're on page 149 now. This is the 21st year, Baruch Hashem, Chaf Aleph, Ach Toiv Li Yisrael. Ach is Chaf Aleph, only good for Yisrael, which is very appropriate these days, as our brethren escape the the horrors that are taking place in Ukraine. So we should only have goodness, Ach, only. The Gemara says, Ach v'rak mi'utin. Have you heard that expression, Avram? I don't see your face. You're off screen. Now I see your face. Unless you don't want to be seen, Avram. Ach v'rak. Whenever you find the word ach or the word rak, the Gemara says mi'utin. It comes to exclude something. There are certain words that come to include. The Gemara says, when you see the word ach and rak, usually it's mi'utin. So when we say over here, ach toiv li Yisrael, it doesn't mean Jews should have it good. They should only have it good. Because of the word ach, it implies not that they should have bad and good, or sometimes bad and sometimes good. Ach, only good all the time. So this is the 21st year, Baruch Hashem. So when you learn a Maamar and you learn it slow, and you articulate, you take it apart, and you have good discussion and dialogue, it's a whole different type of learning. And again, I encourage everyone, all my listeners, including all the Chevra, to get people, if they can't join the shiur, to listen to the shiurim. Now they're pretty much a half an hour or so. It's not that long. And it's like you're a sound bite for the day. With an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Some Chassidus with Rabbi Dolphin a day keeps you rocking and rolling for the day. You gotta be fresh, you gotta be fun, and you gotta keep going. Because otherwise you get very decrepit and very lonely and very sad and very upset. So take it as it comes, you know. I wouldn't say this when I was 20, 30, even 40, but now at 61, Baruch Hashem, that I have more of that attitude. I'm not going to say I have it all the time, but more of the attitude, and it's important. It's important if you gain this attitude when you're younger, you know, it's easier. And there's some people by nature, they have that. That's the way it is, you know. One of my daughters, you know, nothing fathers him. It's water off her back. You know, she's so chilled, she's so calm. It's a blessing in a way, you know, but for many of us, it's not that way. You know, we take things seriously, and we get involved, and then we get upset, and we have opinions, and so when you learn Chassidus, and you internalize it, you try to take it in, and you try to work with it, you realize, you know, you're not the center of the universe, and the world has been around, and Hashem is much bigger than all of us, so just relax, calm down, and let's see how we can make it work. So in this Maamar 149, the Rebbe now concludes with what he began, which is the pasuk Zochor es ha'she'asa lecha Amelek, and to remind ourselves of what we learned probably 2 to 3 months ago. The questions in the Maamar, which, as I've told you, are always kind of the insignificant part of the Maamar, although for the average, even Torah student, you have a question, you want an answer, give me an answer. What are you schlepping me out for 21 classes? Chassidus Chabad is a different type of mahalach. It's a different approach. You like it, don't like it, but it's a different approach. We first have to become more spiritual. And once we become more sensitized and spiritual through the learning of the Maamar, the content, the body, the meat and potatoes of the Maamar, then you could look at an answer, you could look at a question, how does it answer the question and all that. But that's not really what we're looking at. We want to come to an experience that on Purim we're more sensitized to God. Yes, Yonason.
We're not explanation about that the Maamar, the beginning of the Maamar, asked question of the apostle. So the apostle is like a piece of wood. And when you chop the wood out, then it easy to burn. Then once it burns, then you get the light of consciousness in the middle, and then afterwards you answer the question.
And where did you hear this from, Rabbi Lipsker? Who told you this? I figured he heard it in Morristown from Rabbi Lipsker. It smells of Rabbi Lipsker's an insight, which is beautiful. Thank you. Just yesterday, Yonason, I was speaking to Rabbi Herson of Morristown. He Baruch Hashem, the memory is not as sharp as it was, but he when he realizes that he's a little misplacing dates and years, he like composes himself and he says, hold on. He's a very, very composed, disciplined person, and I see it now as he's probably 86 or so, or 87, and Kanei Nahara, I see, in other words, the quality that he had when we were in yeshiva, it's recognizable now, even at an age where he's a little, sometimes a little mixed up with a date here or there, but his style of preciseness and clarity and be very careful what's being said is still there, which is, again, a person, if they in their youth they develop themselves in a certain way, it stays with them for their life. And even at the end of their life, even towards the end of their life, there's still that feeling that you sense from the person. But Baruch Hashem, we had a great conversation, a few stories that I wrote, and he gave me the correct version in great detail, so that when I publish it, and he was very happy for me to publish it, it's published properly and accurately. This is no small tasks, as I've told you. To document things correctly is so much work. I spend hours and days thinking and trying to get the right information, because with one word you could misinterpret and mislead people, and it's a very it's very important to say things the way you heard. Now, if you heard incorrectly or you were told nonsense and lies, we're not prophets. But what? You have to go to the source. But even what I'm saying is, even going to the source. I'll give you an example. Just one example, if I may. I don't know if I'm boring you. I'll stop talking about this. So Rabbi Herson said that in the late 50s, he doesn't remember what year, the Hanhola, the 770 administration came to him, and they said they want him to go to New Haven. He didn't ask any questions. But they told him this after they had written without his knowledge to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe answered them, no, this should not be done. Because, listen to this, Moshe. Because of two things. One, he's tutoring his sister with her homework every night. His sister learned in Williamsburg at the Beis Yaakov school. This is in the mid-50s. And because she came from Brazil, they're from Brazil, she was weaker in her studies. So Rabbi Herson, after he finished Chassidus at night in 770, he would go over to her sister. I think she was living in Crown Heights, but regardless, and he would help her with her homework. So the Rebbe said, you want to send him away? He needs to do that. How do you like that? The Rebbe wants a brother to help his sister with her homework. I think that's an original type of a story. Number two, the shliach at the time in Argentina was Rabbi Beryl Baumgarten. There's a family in Crown Heights, Baumgarten. So there were two brothers. One of them, Beryl, I think the older brother, was the shliach in Argentina, and he sent a group of boys to learn in 770. And they were also weaker in their studies because they came from, not having the background. Rabbi Herson spoke Portuguese and Spanish, So the administration asked him if he would learn, I think, 2 hours a day, Gemara with the boys. And he agreed, of course, to help them get up to the level. So the Rebbe wrote to the administration, you want to send him away? No, he's learning with the Argentinian boys, and I want him to continue that. Okay, that's very interesting on its own. But when he said to me, New Haven, this is the way, a historian researcher thinks. Why did he go to New Haven? What was going on in New Haven? Why did the yeshiva want to go to New Haven? And you know what he told me? I don't know. I never asked, and until today, I don't know. Because as far as I know, there was no Lubavitch Yeshiva in New Haven in 1958-59. There was Rabbi Moshe Hecht, a brother of J.J. Hecht, who was like the shliach rabbi there, and he had a day school. He had an Achet Mimim. So maybe they wanted him to be a rebbe, a teacher in the yeshiva there. It's hard to believe because Rabbi Herson was one of the prime, nicest students of 770. In many ways, he was very talented, and he was he was used by the Rebbe Rabbi Chadikov because only he knew Portuguese. So he revealed to us years later that they would give him letters for him to answer people. People wrote to the Rebbe in Spanish or Portuguese. I think the Rebbe was able to read the letters. Not in the Spanish, I know, because the Rebbe told my mother, Aleh Shalom. This I know, in Yechidus. He said to my mother, you could speak to me in Spanish. My mother was raised in Costa Rica after the war. So she knew Spanish fluently. And she didn't want we should understand anything that she was saying privately to the Rebbe in Yechidus. So the Rebbe said to her, you could speak in Spanish because I understand. But to write back in Spanish, I'm not sure he was able to do. And in Portuguese, for sure not, as far as I know. So they quietly asked Rabbi Herson to translate the Rebbe's letters that he responded to someone who wrote to him in Spanish or Portuguese, and he should write it in Spanish or Portuguese, which he did, quietly, and no one knew about this for years. Because you're talking about, he was given the letter to write, it's very private, right? But there was no choice. Someone's writing to the Rebbe in Portuguese and needs an answer in Portuguese because they don't understand. So he had that was in addition to being a student in yeshiva and all that. So he had some important responsibilities as a bocher in 770, right? So I asked him what was going. So to take him to send him to be a malamed, a teacher, which I'm not sure he would be good at anyway, in New Haven doesn't make sense. And he told me he doesn't know. But that's an example. In other words, he's walking around with a story of New Haven, but you have to ask him, why do they want to send you to New Haven? The answer is he doesn't know, so it doesn't make a difference. But the question should enter your mind right away when someone tells you such a story. What are you going to New Haven for? What was going on in New Haven? There was gold in New Haven. Later in 1976, they opened the Lubavitch Yeshiva in New Haven. But not till 1970, they're talking about here 1958, 59, the late 50s. I'm just giving you an example how when you say a story, you need to question the story. I'll give you another example that my friends and I are now dialoguing about, and I don't have yet a good answer. I went into the car a few days ago and I put on a CD from Rabbi Yoel Kahn on Tanya that he gave the shiurim here in Borough Park. And those shiurim, he prepped for the radio and for the telephone in 770, and there's actually a video somewhere where you see how he did it. He would mamish stop at every word and tell John Yonason Hackner from WLCC, I took you to the room, Moshe, to show you the room of the communication room. So that's where he sat, Rabbi Yoel, and he was able to see through a little window Hackner, and he would communicate with him. And if he wasn't happy about something, he told him to press it and stop, and he redid it. And it's amazing. You see how the man is like, every word has to be exact, okay? So on the first of these CDs, that's now public, he talks about the cover page of Tanya, the Sharplot. And at the end, Alter Rebbe says, "B'derech haruchu k'tzara," that the way Chabad Hasidus is about is the long, short way. And he brings the Gemara, explaining that there are two ways to enter the city. One is a long way, but it's a short way, but it's a long way because you get till the gate, but you can't come in because there's gates and thorns and bushes, and you can't get through. And the other way is a short, long way. In other words, it's a long, short way, which is Chabad. One second, with long, short way, which means it takes you a long time to get to the metropolitan, to the palace. But once you get there, you're able to get in. This is a Gemara. It's a story in the Gemara. And the Alter Rebbe cites those words in the cover page of Tanya. So then Rabbi Yoel explains the nimshul, the moral, that there is the derech of Rab Shlomo Karliner, the Polish Hasidim, and right, which is Chagas, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, which is based on Emunah. You rely on the tzaddik, and the tzaddik who's plugged in and connected. If you follow the tzaddik and live with the tzaddik will schlep you out of all your issues. So it doesn't require as much internal work on your part. So it's right. So he says that's analogous to the short, longer way. Right? It's a shortcut. Just rely on the tzaddik. Just Keil Chaim. Just say hello. Visit him once a year. Give him some tzedakah and all that, and you're in. Or at least you think you're in. Then there is the long, shorter way, which is Chabad. Oh, you have to learn 21 shiurim, and you have to meditate, and you have to reflect. It's not small change. It's a whole avodah. And frankly, as we all know, that's why not many join Chabad, and those that are serious, because, the smart person realizes this is a lot of work, and I just don't have the interest or the patience. Anyway, in saying that, Rabbi Yoel Khan says that there were, he says in Yiddish, but I'll translate, he says there were many students of the Baal Shem Tov who were noteh. Noteh is a Hebrew word, means which were inclined towards that derech of the Alter Rebbe. And I don't know why, it was the first time that I heard such words coming from him, so my ears went, what? I am under the impression for 40 years, that most of the students went the other way, not with the Alter Rebbe. And Rabbi Yoel didn't say the word most, he said many, asach, many. So right away I started to WhatsApp, email, the big thinkers of Chabad today, supposedly, anyway. And what do they think? And I got the answers right here on the phone. And they say it makes no sense. In other words, the feeling I had, they're acknowledging it. But that's what he said. And I'm convinced either that he heard it from the Rebbe, because he would never say such a thing if he didn't hear it from the Rebbe, or he could prove it. He cannot explain it, but he's not here now. So like a rabbi said to me, go to his caver, pray there, and maybe at night he'll reveal himself to you and give you an explanation. But all jokes aside, Avram, when you hear such a thing, you could just take it at face value, and some of my friends are like being dismissive. Either we don't know, but I really am all worked up about this, because I'm convinced if he said it, he meant something. There's not even a question in my mind. Now go figure it out. So that's the way you need to explore a story. And a lot of people, they don't have the patience, the interest, and they even sometimes get upset and angry that you explore a story this way, because they feel you're watering down the faith of the story. Moshe, you follow what I'm saying? And there's something to it. I will acknowledge that. And it's a very hard balance. It's a very hard balance to be faithful and at the same time be, what's the word, exquisitive, to explore. The balance, walking between the drops, like I told you yesterday. On one hand, you're a chassid, you're from Yid, you have faith, emunah, you hear a story. Excuse me, that's the way it is. And at the same time, come on, let's see if this, how do you reconcile the two? This is all a long elaboration, which, since we mentioned story, I just wanted to share the way I think we should think about incorporating stories into our Avodas Hashem. Let's go now to the Maamar 149, the fourth line. And that was the Farbrengen that I said we would Farbrengen today about. So the last 8 minutes of the Shir is dedicated to the last Shir, Shir 22. V'zehu, the end of the fourth line, third word on the fourth line. V'zehu, and this is Zochor es asher asu lecha Amelek. Remember what Amelek did to you. The ibudah shel Amelek, the destruction and obliteration of Amelek, who ayidei zechira, it comes specifically through memory. V'hu sheyiu divrei Torah chakukim b'koyach zechreinai. Very clear. This means, Avram, we need to memorize Torah, and in our minds, it needs to be chakukim, engraved in our minds. Everyone here has to choose a pasuk or 2 or 3 and memorize it. Yes, kip shutoi. Matoivu elecha Yaakov b'shtach Yisrael. Tilu David arimim chalakai Amelek. Shema Yisrael. And the psukim of the 12 psukim. Whatever it is. To have words of Torah, chakukim b'koyach zichroinai. Look at the words. In the power, in the faculty of your memory. Asher yochel achshav, so that you will be able to think, ulahare, and to contemplate behem on those words, b'chol eish u'b'chol makom. So here's the answer. Avram, how do I get rid of this Amelek, which is apathy and everything else? The answer is by thinking words of Torah that you have stored away in your memory. Well, Amelek comes to you and he wants you to be cold and apathetic and throws doubts in. Start thinking Torah. But you have to have what to think about. And we mean specifically to have it chakuk b'koyach zechroinai. It's edged in your memory. V'hine bezeh ma'abdin klipas Amelek. Says the previous Rebbe, this is the way we destroy the negative klipa of Amelek. And this answers the question, Yonison. The question was, how is it through Zochor, remember, that you get rid of Amelek? How, you would think, Moshe, that the way to get rid of Amelek is not to bring him to your mind. You don't want to think about negative stuff, bad people, bad situations. So what does the Rebbe say? You're right. You shouldn't be thinking about Amelek. You should think Torah. And that's why, again, we've said this before, but it's worth saying again. A good part of Torah to memorize are the first 12 lines of chapter 41 in Tanya, chapter 41. That's the way it begins. It ends on the side 2 of that chapter printed in Tanya with the words Lifnei HaMelech. And it's not my suggestion, it's the Rebbe's suggestion. And many letters to many people, from students to Balabatim. Because that chapter in general, in those 12 lines, put the whole idea of the fear of God, awe for Hashem, as the crux, as the essence, as the foundation of everything you do. That's the most important nekuda from that, right? The Alter Rebbe is saying, although we've discussed ways of becoming a bein and refining yourself, and although we also learned that there's sometimes issues that in chapter 26, he says, that come from the outside to disturb us, like issues with health, children, and parnasa, So you would think that if so, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. God, you did it to me. And I heard a sikha from the Rebbe the other day talking about Mashiach, and the Rebbe was choking up and couldn't talk. He was crying, and he says, what do you want from the person? Talk to God. Ad Mosai. Yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw Rabbi Osman from Ukraine somewhere. Wow, was he upset? I don't know. He seemed to be very angry at some of his, I think, friends. I don't know, and he was going on. But part of it said is, we gotta really. Oh, this was another rabbi on a bus coming out of, I forget where. And he was saying, we have to talk to Hashem and ask Hashem to bring Mashiach already. What did we do that we deserve this? One crazy man is causing this balagan in an entire country, and we have to run because he's throwing missiles now at buildings with kids and people. So he's saying, Hashem, what do you want from us? What did we do? So when it comes, Amelek is a troublemaker. Amelek is a troublemaker. That's in a nutshell a troublemaker. Here you are davening, and here you are in your shul, and here are your family, and things like that, and all of a sudden there are issues and troubles that come up, and it throws you for a loop. So what's the answer? That's Amelek. Amelek's even more, where Amelek will say, hey, you're derech. Why do you have to go such a derech? Why do you have to go on such a path? I mean, we all have beards, so we can talk about it. What do you need a beard for? What do you need a full beard? Why can't you trim your beard? You want to have a beard? No problem. But you have to have a wild beard that they should call you Santa Claus. And what's the answer? That's an Amelek question. Because if you decided with your free will, and Hashem gives it to you, to have such a beard, kol hakavod. You're not putting down those that don't have such a beards, but you feel either good or whatever. It's your decision. And someone can go and challenge you and poo-poo you, especially from the inside, a spouse, a child, a parent, etc. We all know, So what's the answer? It's an Amelek. I'm sorry. It could be your own spouse, and it's an Amelek question. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have a good relationship and have love towards them. But in this area, it's an Amelek. I'm sorry. Whether they don't have the background, whether they have anger, whether they have low self-esteem, I don't know, whatever it is. So it's, we shouldn't. I'm saying this because it can be your closest person or close people to you who have good relationships with you, but in certain areas they just don't understand or don't agree. Okay, they don't. And if someone walks away from a relationship and a friendship because of that, you got to check out if to begin with they're really your friend and they're in a relationship. People have to respect each other. If you can't respect, I always say, you have to respect the other person's differences, not what you have in common. That's Amelek. And what does the Rebbe say is the answer? Don't fight with them. That's my point here. He doesn't say that the way to get rid of Amelek is to fight with Amelek and shoot back. Oh, and you don't like my beard, my whole beard, my full beard, my unkempt beard, whatever the case. And then you have this issue. And do I criticize you about this? I don't. So you're allowed to have this issue, but I'm not allowed to have my beard. The Rebbe says you shouldn't do that. He doesn't say it, but he's intimating. You shouldn't use that approach, because that's combative, and it is not going to lead to shalom bayis, and it's not going to lead to good relationships and good friendships. He says, do one thing. Start thinking words of Torah that you have memorized in your head that have meaning. It'll put you in a different area. And so the question is, how will the Amelek dissipate and be obliterated from that attitude by me thinking Torah? The answer is, they'll see you're special. I told you, a friend that I know about the Teshuva became about the Teshuva. He has a beard that like goes to his belly button. He rolls it up, but if he let his beard out, he married a girl who wasn't religious. He wasn't religious. She's a modern woman. Like, what are you, out of your mind? And when he started to grow his beard like that, was during the time I was learning with him, I was concerned, like, what do you have? Because I felt that she's going to, just explode. And you know what I was told? And I saw it because I spoke with her and we had conversations. Because she respected him, I don't know if she, is in love with the beard, but she tolerated it. That's for sure. And maybe even more. When you respect someone, the issues that fall aside. So the Rebbe says here, how do you gain respect? But one second, by memorizing Torah. Because by memorizing Torah, you're a different person. They see that this is, you're not, in other words, they see that your beard is not because you decided, they see your beard as coming from a deeper connection, a more spiritual life. Things are more important for you. Yes, Moshe.
I was just going to add that obviously she respects it, she tolerates it, maybe even more, because of how her husband, how he treats her.
Yes.
Yes. Obviously, he treats her like
a queen.
like a queen, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. 100%. 100%. Thank you for adding that. If he wouldn't treat her with that respect, yeah. I told you the other story. An old congregant for years ago. They were fighting cats and dogs. He comes to me, wants a divorce. I say, I don't give divorces. I didn't come as a shliach to give divorces. I came to bring people under the chuppah. Try another 3 months. Go back and work it out. 3 months, come back. He says, Rabbi, I can't. And she's not going to the mikveh. Now he really got me. Hey, now he's not going to the mikveh. This is like halachic issues. So I say, look, I'm a new rabbi. I'm a new guy. I did training in rabbinics, but this is a heavy one. This you have to write to the Rebbe. As far as I'm concerned, write to the Rebbe, and whatever direction he gives you, that's what we do. He wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe answered right away, quoting the Gemara, how great Shalom Bayis is. In other words, the Rebbe disregarded his argument that she doesn't go to the mikveh. And by the way, I just heard it the other day, another shliach in Winnipeg said a similar story with someone, a couple, one was from, one wasn't from, and the from said, I want out. And the Rebbe said, no. Mikveh? Shalom Bayis is so great. Work it out. The Rebbe doesn't have to give you the specifics. You have to work it out yourself. But anyway, what happened? After he got that letter, this person I'm telling you the story about got that letter from the Rebbe. Guess what happened? He changed his attitude and stopped bickering and criticizing her, and they're married today in a beautiful way. So that supports what you're saying, Moshe. His criticism of her, she said, I'll teach you a lesson. I ain't going to the mikveh. Do something about it. But when he changed his attitude and he had more respect for her, she said, sure, I'm going to go to the mikveh. And that's how you have harmony. Now, other exceptions, there's always an exception. I'm not going to say, but overall, as a general rule, I think that these are truisms, these klolim, what Moshe said, what I said. And I'm just emphasizing that this is what the Rebbe is saying in the Maamar, that the way to combat Amelek is not confrontational, but rather immerse yourself in something higher and different, and all of a sudden you'll see, and as Moshe said, and also show respect towards the other, and you'll see that there's a change in everything that's going on. And I think that's why such a Maamar, although a lot of it was about very deep intellectual stuff, but at the end, ideas. But at the end, when he boils it down, and he explains the Zochor Amelek, and it's coming up in a week or two, is the Shabbos Zochor. I think it's a beautiful lesson to share at a Kiddush, Moshe, with other people. You don't have to go into the bottom line. You ask a question and you give an answer, and how the Rebbe explain it in a way that people can relate to it. And you'd say that this is from a Maamar of the previous Rebbe. They should know where it comes from. Because first of all, Pirkei Avos says, someone who says something over in the name of the person who said it brings redemption to the world. That's what it says in Pirkei Avos. And who doesn't want to bring redemptions? That's number one. And number two, it's only right if we're learning his Maamar and he taught us this, we should give him the credit. And finally, the message is such an important one, especially today, and especially with even relationships between parents and kids and teenagers and young adults and on and on. You wouldn't think that this is the answer, Avram and Yonis. You wouldn't think this is the answer when you have an Amelek situation. You wouldn't think that this answer that the Rebbe gives in this Maamar. And by the way, in other Maamar he says other things. But in this Maamar, 1934, he said in Riga, this is what he says. You wouldn't think this would be the answer. But if you open it up and you look at the greater picture, you extrapolate, I think you will find that this is definitely one method, and a healthy and a good method to changing a situation. Chevra, have a great Chodesh, everyone. Good Farbringen, good learning. Mitzvah Hashem, we'll start a new Maamar. We're going to start a Maamar in Mitzvah Hashem on Pesach, because Pesach is coming. And it's in this Sefer. It's not the next Maamar, but it's the Maamar after that, which is Or Larba Osar, Beit Kinas HaChametz, right? Where is it? Page... what did you say?
Page 158.
Yeah, 158. So that's the Maamar we're going to learn. And I think that should take us through Pesach and Mitzvah Hashem. Okay? Have a great Shabbos. Only good news. We'll be in touch.
Amen.
Love you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right, Shabbos. What is
Good Shabbos.